Welcome. Welcome. Here we are again, another Monday. Hope your Monday is going well. Today is jam-packed for me. I'm on Zoom from 9:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm going to morph into this chair. Luckily, I have a desk that goes up and down, so I'm going to eventually have to get up and move around. But anyway, hope you're not literally attached to your chair like I am. We're asking again just to get some sense, read the room. I'd like to find out how many y'all are here for talent search, how many for EOC, how many for both. So if you wouldn't mind, thank you, Donna. Donna reads my mind, which is scary, Donna, if you can read my mind. Um, she's figured me out already, a long time ago. So she's already launched the poll. So let us know, talent search, EOC, or both. Looks like we got more talent search peeps right now, and we have 19 of 26. So some of y'all are holding out on me here. Maybe not by your computer or didn't see the poll, but I'm needing to know how many y'all are with talent search versus EOC and how many are both. We're getting there. Thank you to my 22. Awesome. Okay, looks like I can imagine and assume that we're going to have, as usual, more talent search, which makes sense. We have more talent search than we have EOC programs. So I'm going to end the poll here. All right. So as usual, I'm going to open it up. Anyone have any questions they want to start off? You can put it, we're trying to do it in the Q&A. Couple of reasons why, because we can kind of keep a listing. And also, I believe when you get this recording, which is on also, you can go to our YouTube channel. I believe you can get the transcript. I'm not sure, Donna. And the transcript, or at least there's a Q&A report. I believe you can download that. So that's the number one reason. The other reason is so that you can ask anonymously. I don't think you can do it in chat. So if you don't want to be, recognized or whatever, for whatever reason, I feel you. You can go in the Q&A and do that. Are there any updates on the release date for Town Search Proposal? The only thing, no, but the only thing I can tell you is that I have changed my timeline. And Donna, that's one of the other things we need to do, if you don't mind, put it on that constant list of things to do, is to revise our timeline that we have right now in the Google Drive. Because initially, I was thinking that this would be due in July, the 15th, like it was for SSS, because it usually mimics that. But of course, starting March 1st, that all went, cuckoo crazy. And so then I started thinking, okay, possibly the end of September, right? So that's an end of September, end of September. Now I'm getting the sense and hearing from some other folks that I rely on to, be on top of things, that it's maybe going to go back to originally what it has always been, which is in February of 2026. I mean, just speculation, complete speculation, nothing concrete. But I'm just looking at things and listening to folks, and it's been pushed back. So, Donna, we're going to have to readjust that, both timelines, to possibly do something so that maybe in January. We're finalizing things, so to speak. But yeah, that's nothing concrete, but that's what I've sensed. That's what I feel. So we've now moved back to the original due date that it's always been, which has been in February, or maybe even March, early March for EOC, but February for talent search. Usually talent search is first. But again, it's pure speculation. Great question, though. We are revising our timelines. I don't think it's going to be, end of September. I will tell you this, when it finally drops, when that grant application, which I refer to as an RFP, because that's what we used to call it back in the day. So it's hard to break all habits, right? Once it drops, I think they're going to give us the shortest amount of time to work on it, which could be 30 to 40. Well, it could be what, 45 days to, I forget, 60 days maybe, but whatever. It could be short. So what I'm saying is, don't be waiting on that to drop to be working on this. Everyone on this call right now needs to be working on their needs section, their budget, and their applicant and community support section right now. Okay. And the other sections, as soon as you do your budget, do the draft, update the old version, update it, look at it as though you're an outsider. Hire somebody or get friends to volunteer, make sure you take out any thing that could be possibly DEI language. We have uploaded in the Google Drive some trigger words that we got from Gear Up and some other listing that we were able to, that we worked off of when we spent part of this summer, early this summer. We were subcontracted by another firm that has clients all over the country to look through over, I think we must have done 25 proposals that we looked at of submitted proposals to take out anything or flag anything that might be a trigger, a trigger word, or might be some cause for any kind of, you know, ruckus. So, y'all need to be working on this right now. I doubt, some things may change, but I doubt they'll change drastically. So pretend the 2021 program application, which is uploaded in the Google Drive, pretend it's the real one, minus the CPPs, and start working like crazy on it right now while you have the time. Let's be, for real. Right time, right now for both EOC and talent search. It's not going to get as quiet as it is right now. When school starts up and everything else, it's going to be a mess as usual. So this is the time to jump on it. So don't wait, please, because when it drops, it's going to be due very fast, and you don't want to get started when it drops. Okay, whenever it does drop. Any other questions we have? Come on now. And in the chat, if you want to be identified in the Q&A, let's see, we have another one here. If our institution requires dual roles, how do we explain that without losing points? So I'm guessing that you mean the project director is already set up as being split, is what I'm thinking that question means. If your institution requires dual roles of the director. If not, just let me know, but I'm going to assume that's the case. Remember what I said, if you are already split, anybody out there, just put your thumb up, give me a thumbs up if you are a director who's split across more than one grant right now on the call with us. Okay, all right. You're split right now and it's been approved. You have to stay split, all right? But even if I'm telling you, look, you're split, you have to remain split in the budget and the proposal and also in the narrative. But I'm letting you know, don't be shocked if you lose a point because you're split. And you're like, well, why don't I just go back and make myself 100? No, you don't want to do that, because if you do that to avoid losing a point in the proposal, um, the only reason I would do that is if if you are going for, no, I mean, I would not have you go back to 100%. If you're split, you stay split. Go ahead and possibly take a hit, because hopefully you should have more than just 1 point in your prior experience points so far. That's the other thing I want y'all to do. I want you to start adding up your prior experience points from year 2, year 3, and what you think you're going to get for this year's APR. Okay, I want you to start adding them up to see how much you have to work with. And if you're split, you remain split in the grant, you go ahead and explain it. You may still lose points, but you definitely want to mention this has been approved before according to this regulation and according to the Department of Ed that has approved this for this year or this funding cycle or prior cycles, whatever. And also you want to mention that someone else on staff is 100% time and effort that in your absence serves as the acting project director when you're not there. That's how you avoid losing 2 points, because it's going to be so competitive that I would tell the readers, I don't care if they've been split forever and a day and I was the one who approved it. Go ahead and still take a point off if they're not a full-time director. But take 2 points off if they don't mention they've got a lead advisor that will serve, or at least mention that in the director's absence, this position will have limited supervisory and managerial duties and responsibilities in the director's absence. You got to go ahead and be ready to take the hit for losing a point. If anything, losing a point here is less of a headache, especially if you have enough prior experience points to absorb that, than putting yourself back to 100% just to lose that 1 point. And then when you try to do your real budget after you get funded and put yourself a split, they're going to be like, oh no, I don't think so. You were split, then you put it in for 100%. Can you imagine if they told you, you're stuck being 100%? And you're like, uh-oh, I just wrote myself out of a job. So once you're split, stay split, please. Okay. And just deal with it and make sure you have enough prior experience points to offset that and that you say that someone try to explain it. At worst case scenario, something happens and they miss it and they don't realize it and you don't lose a point. But you still want to stress that someone else is going to be there in your absence. Okay. That's how you avoid losing 2 points. The latest with SSS, you know what? I will tell you that in years past, it's been until I remember we didn't find out until the first week of August if we got refunded. Very stressful without all this other stuff hanging around. So it's really early. I mean, it's not that because they made us turn it in so darn early, right? They made us turn it in way earlier than we're used to turning things in. So the idea is that they were supposed to let us know early June, which didn't still match with how early they made us turn it in. You would have thought they would have let us know by January. But here we are, it's way past the 1st of June because other stuff is going on. So someone just asked me that same question. I was like, you know what? I'm used to waiting until the first week of August before I started getting real nervous. So it could take a minute. It took a minute. So I have no new news on it. I know there's something, we even posted a blog about it that they're going to do their best to get it out. What they say, Donna, by July 1st? But I thought, right, July 1st. Okay, but they didn't commit to it. They're working on it. I've said that lots of times to clients. I'm working on it. My best bet is to get it to you by the 1st. And you never know. They could surprise us. Nothing surprises me. They could really, it might come out tomorrow on July 1st, but I just know I'm used to waiting until the first week of August. Okay. So, that's the latest I have with SSS. With EOC, can you speak to the plan to identify and select eligible participants and ensure their participation without regard to race, color, national origin, gender, or disability? How can we just, how can we say we will guarantee success? Well, you always want to say you want to plan on guaranteeing success, but here's the good news. GEPA, because what you're referring to is GEPA, which is where you ensure their participation without regard to race, color, national origin, gender, or disability. What you could do in the narrative is maybe mention that the director will select eligible participants and ensure their participation um, per GEPA regulations. You can write it out per the general education. I forget what GEPA stands for. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. Without possibly mentioning the breakdown and without regard to race, color, national origin, gender, or disability. So if you want to play it really safe within your narrative, you still want to state that the director will adhere to GEPA and spell it out initially, GEPA. Leave it at that. Don't go into the breakdown without regard to all that other narrative. Because you're going to have to fill out a whole nother 4 questions form to upload separately. So there's no longer a need until we find out otherwise if we have to go into that detail about describing GEPA like we used to have to do before we have this new form that pretty much takes it out of the proposal, but talks about it in GEPA. And we did have to redo the GEPA for Gear Up slightly. And I believe I uploaded in the Lunch and Learn, I believe, in the GEPA folder, I took away the old versions, the old templates, and I put the latest template of the one that we did with Gear Up, where we took out any language that could be a trigger word. But we still have GEPA. We still have to adhere to it. I would just downplay it and just refer to it, to the regulation itself without explaining what the regulation is within the narrative. The other thing I would do differently this time is instead of stressing low income first generation, I would just say, talent search eligible students, EOC eligible students, you know, participants that are eligible for EOC. And low income and potential first generation college student is not necessarily a trigger word so far. But if you leave off the potential and you just say first generation, that could be read wrong. We talk a lot to one another. We go FG, first generation, but we really mean is potential first generation, especially with EOC and talent search. So I would make sure to go through my narrative and check for not wanting to stress certain words that you see in those documents that we uploaded and just simplify it and make it adhere to talent search or EOC eligible participants. What if I'm interim in one grant and permanent with the other? Okay, the deal is, I guess, if it sounds like it's split still. The salary, it depends on right now what the plan is. I mean, is right now the interim salary coming from the institution for that part, or is it coming out of the grant? You need to find out ASAP if this is something, whether you're permanent or interim. I know some people have been interim for 2 or 3 years. Where is your money coming from? Is it coming from both grants or one grant and then institutionally funded? That's a different story. So find out where your money is coming from. And if it's coming from both, right now you're split. So I'm assuming it's going to be split moving forward. Okay. Even if it hasn't been split before, this is the time to ask. So some of y'all, one of my clients just got permission to split between Upward Bound and Talent Search. And I'm glad they did it now, but he could have waited and uh, requested that approval with the proposal submission too as well. So find out where your money's coming from. That's where you need to decide if you're split, and it probably would be safer to be split. But then again, um, I'm assuming you're writing to continue an existing talent search or EOC. If you are going for brand new funding, anyone out there going for a brand new talent search or EOC grant, let me know, just with thumbs. Let me know if anybody is going for brand new funding. Okay, okay, so someone there's, okay, if you're going for brand new funding, you're stuck with making sure in that budget, even if it's temporary and you're hoping that it'll split later, you're not going to get funded if you don't put 100% director for sure in that brand new, never established talent search or EOC grant. Even if you're planning in the future, your plan here is to, well, once, if it gets funded, if we get our existing one and we get this other one, then we're going to go ahead and split it. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to ask to split. And before that used to be a given, but now it's hit or miss. So if your plan is to split, if you get funded, first thing, get funded, which I hate to say this, but I will pass out if any completely new grants for talent search or EOC get funded right away. If they get funded, they might get funded 2 or 3 years from now when they find extra money. Okay, just letting you know, it's never been this competitive before. Even if you get funded for a brand new proposal for EOC or talent search, it had to have had 100% director. And then you can ask to split when you turn in your budgets from your existing grant with a new one. You can ask, but it's not a sure thing. You might get shut down and they say, nope, you wrote it at 100%. And you're like, I had to get funded. Okay, well, you're going to have to be that way for a while. And so you need to be prepared to that, find someone to work for that 100% salary, possibly. Best case scenario is you might get approval to be split. Might. I don't want to promise because I don't want you to come back and say, well, you said, well, look, if you'd put less than 100% director on that new one, you would have not gotten funded. Now here you got funded. Now you got a problem. The problem is, will they let you split now? And they may not let you. All right. When you're gathering community support letters for EOC, would you suggest going in person to each agency to request these, or do you feel like emails, phone calls are okay? It depends. If you're going for new funding, definitely you got to go in person. Okay. Or it's good to go in person if you can. I mean, it's different now, right? You would think some people are annoyed or they don't see anybody in person. So I guess it all depends as to what the culture is right there locally. I always think it's better to go in person if you can, but you have to make a meeting or, because now is the time, especially if you're going for continuation funding, same grant, same location. It's a good time to check in with folks, I think, because you know what, you may be visiting them not just to get updated letters of commitment, but especially in EOC, you need them to give you quotes to back up some of the needs section data. Because a lot of the data in EOC, it's hard to find on a report. It's hard to find that quantitative data, or I may have some, but what really makes an impact with the reader is the qualitative assessment. And you can't be the person giving that qualitative assessment. You need these people that work in the community, the GED directors, the community service agencies. They need to, the workforce center, you probably need them more to give you in-person quotes that you can put in the needs section to explain why there is a need for a specific type of training and education in the target area. You probably need them to tell you why what the current employment trend is in the target area. You're going to need them to tell you what they think, how, an adult, how many adults apply for financial aid on their own or get their GED here, or that there's a lack of support services for free for GED. I don't know where you're going to find that in any written report. So more important than getting the letters, or just as important, is getting them to give you some quotes to put in your needs section. Okay, so I definitely think, and some of that can be done in person, via phone or email, but I think it'd be best to do it in person. Once every 5 years, seeing these people in person or trying to flag them down. And like I said, more importantly, to get some feedback or make that connection so that later on, when you find something in the proposal, you're thinking, okay, that lady that I met with at the workforce center, you know what? I'm going to follow up with her. I already saw her in person, so maybe now a phone call or an email would be appropriate. You see what I'm saying? So you may not get everything you need the first time you see them or think of everything, but if you make that connection, hopefully, then you can follow up with a phone call or an email. Okay. Is it not worth every 5 years to get out of the office? As hot as it is right now, believe me, not something I'm looking forward to, but I gotta make myself go out there and do that, make that connection, if anything, so I can follow up and ask them to help me with some quotes. We're writing a town search proposal for a rural county with a high number of retirees that have good financial resources. Therefore, we're having trouble identifying a high number or high percentage of low-income families. Will high levels of Social Security or public assistance levels be acceptable? No, they will not be acceptable. I mean, you could add that as a supplemental need, but the initial question, we can't get around that. It's in the regulations. You have to show, well, here's something else. The question for talent search, it says high number of or percentage of low-income families or a high number of percentage of low-income students at the target schools. So you could try to take the shift away from that first part because it is an or, it doesn't say and. I will tell you it's stronger, and especially if you're going for new funding, sorry, but I will favor a proposal that can show me that there's a lot of families that are low income in the target area and a lot of students in the target schools. I must favor that, or I'm not favor because I can't compare, but I will give I'm more likely to give full points there than if you only can show me need in one of those two areas. If you're focused just on the target school number of low income students at the target schools, I'm going to be used to people telling me that both is a situation. So I can't help when I get to yours and it just focuses possibly on just the high number of students, high number of low income students at the target school. You're going to have to really double down on that and then maybe mention as one of the reasons why could be, a lot of, you could tell me this story and just put in there that, the young families are struggling. You're going to have to work a little harder, but, you know, uh, it's still possible, but I'm guessing that you haven't mentioned it yet, but let me know what's the free reduced price lunch rate at the target schools? What is their definition of economically disadvantaged? Is it showing that there's a high percentage there? Otherwise, I got to tell you, it's not looking good. If this is an existing grant, then you're going to have to eat up a lot of your prior experience points to probably take a hit for these questions here. It's the first question. The grant's not a great way to start. If this is for brand new funding, I would say, you know what? I don't think this is going to happen. And I'm just being for real. I don't want to turn anybody off, but I'm just being for real. It's really hard when it's a rural school to show a need with the existing questions that we have. I'm hoping that number one, we stay around for a while beyond just one more year, right? And get assurances we'll be around for a while, but they're going to have to do reauthorization sooner or later. And that's when they can revamp some of these questions. But until then, we're kind of stuck with them because right now these questions do not favor funding for rural areas because the way they're listed. Like another thing you're probably going to get hit on is do your target schools, the rural schools, have a high student to counselor ratio? And it's got to be higher than the state or the nation. And I doubt because these schools are so small, unless that counselor is not even full time and split across the elementary, middle school, and high school. So that could be another thing that is going to, be an issue. You got too many of these issues. If you're existing, maybe you can survive living off of your prior experience points. But if you're going for new funding, it's going to be really, really tough. Let's see. Um, Okay, so someone says, you know what, they are just getting started now. Even if you start now, that's fine. Like I said, what I said, if you start right now, you got to take the old needs section and save, copy and paste it into a new Word document and start updating the data there is number one. Okay. Number two, do your budget, for the first year of the grant using this year's funding because it's probably going to be leveled for next year, which will be level for the same funding we're going to ask for, minus the carryover. That's a trick. And do the budget there. Do those two things and then work on your applicant and community support section. Get those three things, start on those first three things, the needs section, the applicant community section, and do your budget in Excel. I believe we have in the Google Drive a template for the budget, I believe, for the first year budget. Double check me, Donna, but I think we have that there. So you can start already playing with the numbers. There's formulas in there for the fringe benefit rate there, but you need to change the formulas. Don't remove the formulas, just update them as needed to match what you guys are currently paying out in salaries, and we'll have to plug in how much you think there's going to be an increase in salaries and add another 5% to your overall fringe benefit rate. Because if anything, it's going to go up higher than that. So anyway, what I would recommend, someone's asking about advice on how to get started, just told you those three things. But I definitely think you need to ask your institution to allow you to use for them to pay for, I mean, don't just not ours, but I'm sure if you're a member of COE, you can attend their grant writing workshops. I think they have some virtual. I think you can attend them for free because you're a member of COE. That's why you pay for 5 years an annual membership. So you can go to, that's one of the benefits to get that free. But also, on our website right here, we've got those on demand. We'll have those courses ready. I strongly recommend you you ask your institution to invest in those. And we basically talk you through every single section and share with you a Google Drive that has templates, if anything, of previous other competitions that are similar to EOC that would be helpful. So that's what I would, and attending these workshops too, or when we get together to ask your question. But really, it takes money to make money or invest money. So you just can't use project funds, but you could use indirect funds, or you can go ahead and use institutional funds. It's a reasonable investment, and you could look at our website. And I think Donna's going to put in the chat, a link to those, the on-demand recordings, which we will soon have in a course setting for those folks that need a little bit more structure, with quizzes at the end of every session and a list of things to do and things like that. So EOC, I was stressing about the budget. You should be stressed about the budget, but then I received a resignation. I will try to ride this RFP out with one director and two academic advisors and increase the local travel budget. Well, that sounds like the perfect budget to me. Honestly, I'm used to having one full-time director and two full-time academic advisors, depending on how many participants you serve. If I'm going by the 850, maybe you have more, then that would tell me what, 425 each. I could see that I can defend, or I can explain that each advisor would be responsible for about 425 participants, and that's reasonable. So I'm used to this. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm sorry about the resignation, but in a way you should be rejoicing because you just dodged a bullet there. Notice, there's no money for administrative assistant. And that's the way it happens. So that's usually the director, becomes the administrative assistant in the sense. I mean, you could say the director has a small caseload, but really, if there's no administrative assistant, the director's the one, doing everything else so that the two advisors can go out, identify, recruit, and provide services to 425 each. I really, really like that budget. In fact, I would think that's reasonable and a good use of funds. So they actually did you a favor. Okay, so got that one done. And it's just interim from now. My salary is coming from my current town search grant, which I'm permanent in. So I'm still confused. So okay, if it's intern from now only and they want to do, once they get somebody permanent, the idea is they always focused on having 100% director on each, then you write 100% director on each. If that's the way it is and that's the way it's planned, and that your money's not coming out of that grant right now to get paid, then go ahead and do that. There may be a possibility, you may think about it. You'll have a whole year to think about it once these get turned in. That's why you have to redo the budget because so much can happen in a year, right? They'll force you to do a whole new budget. So that's a year from after you turn it in, you could decide if you want a request to be split. Who knows what happens between then and now, right? All right, everyone gets free lunch unless financial need. This is not brand new funding. Okay, rule. Okay, so then you'll have to stress that everyone is eligible. Well, they had to have, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a certain percentage that they have to hit in order for the whole school to be eligible. So you might want to stress on that and stress on everything else related to it. But you would be able to say 100% of the students, right, are eligible technically, right? Technically, they're 100%. So how many does this mean? Look how many hundreds, how many thousands, and we can only serve about 500. I'm just, depending on what you're funded to serve. But then I would go into everything else about you could say, well, this designation comes from a certain percentage being above and beyond, and start talking about all the other things that are going on with those young families. This is where you can bring up funding. Maybe you can, on the census, there's ways where you can bring up income by age. You might have to get a little deeper and maybe distract the reader by, like I said, you might not have answers to both parts of the first question. Technically, you can go by just talking about how many low-income students there are, but then you can layer it on thick. You're going to have to work harder to distract the reader in a sense by trying to find other census data to stress your case. With one of them could be, the thing you mentioned about, how many people are on Social Security, things like that. But I think you should focus on female heads of household, that are public assistance, number of students under particular types of poverty levels above and beyond the free reduced lunch. So I think you just need to layer it thick with what's going on with the younger community. If all you can do is focus on that second part of the first question and not on the number and percentage of low-income families in the household, you'll just take it to another set of poverty levels. Okay, so good luck with that, and hopefully see how many points you have in your prior experience, and I'll let you know how much you have as an insurance policy to get through it all. Okay, so 1236. Any other questions, y'all? We have another one. We're budgeting for translation services. Is that allowable for EOC? Great question. At this point, when you do your budget, excluding the carryover, I don't see how you can pay for anything extra. To me, this is an extra service. You may think it's mandatory, maybe it is, but when you redo the budget and throw out any carryover and include increases for what you think people will have to get paid per your agency or institution, add in another 10 to 15% extra for fringe, this is something you won't have to worry about putting in the proposal budget. But maybe once you do your real budget, I would maybe, if it's a big deal and you really need this, I would slide it back into your annual budget so you can talk about it with your program officer. But at this time, just because of what I've seen and just being really cautious about this, because, it used to be, we used to get dinged when we didn't mention this. Now I think we'll get dinged if we do mention it. So I would not put that in my proposal budget. I might put it into my real budget, but I wouldn't risk putting it in my proposal budget. Great question. Okay. Any other questions y'all have?
There was just one in the chat.
Mhm. Oh, let me look at it. Okay. Thank you.
You made her read it?
I got it.
Okay.
For the budget is appropriate to add travel or professional development. So for either EOC or talent search budget, speaking in general, yes, it's appropriate to, on your annual budget, you'll probably find funds. You'll be able to maybe put money in travel, and I guess you mean student or staff travel, or professional development. You might be able to in your real budget or during the year when you have carryover. But I tell you what, do your budget, like I said, start over with just your base amount. You can't use any carryover. So whatever I think all of y'all are working off of your budget that you were supposed to use for 24, 25 plus carryover. What I'm talking about is ignore the carryover. Get rid of that. Now, what are you starting with is just your base for 24, 25. I promise you, when you start adding in salary increases that you'll have for 26, 27, and adding another 10 to 15% increase in whatever you're paying out in fringe benefits right now, you're not going to have any money for travel or professional development initially. There's no way. There's no way. So a lot of y'all are talking about things in the budget that you shouldn't be able to afford in the proposal budget because the money's going to be gone. It's going to be all in fringe and personnel, and you're barely going to have some for the usual suspects that I call them, your computers, your curriculum to use for students, maybe a little bit of travel, maybe for the director to go to the national conference, and then maybe one or two field trips, but that's it. So I doubt anybody, when they do their proposal budget without any carryover, you won't have any funds to put into professional development. But is it an allowable cost? Should you have carryover, or when you do your real budget, you realize, oh, the college is going to pay for something, so now you've got extra money that you didn't think you had before, which is rare, then definitely you can put it in professional development. Okay. Only folks I would think that are split. Like the only time I had money for professional development was when I was split 25% across my grants on each one. And so my administrative system was also split. So we did have a little bit of money for in the proposal budget for professional development, like database training or legs and regs training or something that we put in $1,000, but barely. So do the budget, and a lot of these questions will not even be questions anymore because you won't be able to afford it in the proposal budget. So that's a one way of trying to be a little bit not positive, but one less thing to worry about, right? Because if it's like don't even worry about that because you're not gonna have the money to worry about it. We give staff a stipend for using the personal cell phone. Should we list this as a line item in the budget? Not in the proposal budget. Stipends are not allowable. They're not even allowable um, on a regular basis unless you get prior approval and explain it. But you don't want to, there's no one to explain this to in the proposal budget. So in the proposal budget, I would recommend under other, you put a line item for cell phones. Okay. Like as though the project is going to pay directly for the cell phone coverage. Then when you get refunded, then you duke this out with your program specialist in your real budget. And I'm not sure where you would put it. Maybe it just can't be, it's not allowable to pay staff stipends. So maybe you give them extra salary, maybe you put that in the salary line item and put it a part of that, have it swallow it up. Heck, I guess you could do that in proposal budget too, but you don't want to have a line item in your proposal that looks funny or it does not match. And having a stipend or using the word stipend for staff under other, no, just call it cell phone usage and then figure it out later when you do your real budget with your program officer. Okay, but I would not list it in the proposal budget. I definitely would take a point on. I'd say, oh, they're asking to do something unallowable. That's all she wrote. Where if you waited to do that with your program officer, you could have a conversation about where it should go and some discussion. In regards to objective A, high school GED attainment for EOC, should we look at the percentage of completers taken all tests or percentage pass rate of all test takers as a baseline? Last time I baseline passage rate of all test takers, but I think it is incorrect. Well, let's look at the intent. These regulations go way back, and the intent for people is for them to actually get a GED attainment. So correct me if I'm wrong. If I want to say I have a GED, do I not have to pass all the tests, the individual tests? Would that not be correct in order to get my certificate? Or do they do it differently now where if I pass one section, I get I passed that part of it, but I thought it's all or none. And when you look at the intent for a high school diploma or a G, you must pass all. So then your baseline is the pass rate of all test takers. Is that what you're asking? Should we look at the percentage of completers taking all tests? Or no, it should be the percentage pass rate of all test takers as a baseline. I mean, of all, wait a minute, the pass rate. I'm sorry, let me clear that up. My baseline should be the percentage of everybody that passed all the tests. You could state that a low number take this, or you could add that as supplemental information, the other two things, if you happen to have it, the percentage of completers that took all the tests, or you could say, of everyone who took the test, this is how many actually passed. But your baseline truly is that pass rate, which should be low, right? I would think more people take the test than actually pass it. So your baseline should be on the percentage that pass all the tests, because that would allow them to get the GED. Okay, that's what I would do. I might be able to use some of the information about, you think more alarming is the low rate of people that actually take it. This is the reason why that would be a perfect excuse or answer to why an objective is ambitious yet attainable. This objective we're setting on the percentage of people that will get a GED or a high school diploma is ambitious because already a low number of people take the darn thing. But look how even lower pass all three sections. And in order to get a GED, you have to pass all the three sections. That's my take on that. Hope I didn't confuse y'all. I was confusing myself for a second there. Okay. Any other questions? We've got about 15 minutes left. Anything else? It can be on regulations too regarding talent search or EOC. Doesn't have to be about the proposal. What's the best way to document staff qualifications when they haven't been hired yet? Oh, well, perfect. That's perfectly fine if they haven't been, in fact, you're supposed to write your qualifications as though they haven't been hired yet. You're not supposed to talk about, like in some proposals, about, oh, guess what? We have a great director already in place. She has 30 years of experience. She's done this. No, you act like nobody has been hired yet. You act like it's going to be for a new project, and you're basically putting out there all the minimum requirements in the type of degree and what fields and how many years of experience, especially with the director, how many years of experience in management versus how many years of experience overall in this type of programming. And also what you could do is take the job descriptions, and in the quality of personnel, we're not supposed to put in job descriptions. But what I do is I use the job description and then I flip it, or I change the narrative. So the viewpoint is, this is what we would require as experience, is what they're going to be doing. So you could use that. You could use job descriptions, just flip it, and don't say this is their job description. These are the requirements for the job. Okay, so you don't want to write specifically for the person in place. Like I have over 30 years of experience. You're not going to put, oh, we require the director to have 30 years of experience. Who are you going to get? It's going to cut things down. So you definitely want to act as though it's for a brand new project, and you don't want to even mention or mention that there are people in place. You want to stress these are the things that you're looking for in the terms of educational level, experience required, and experience related to the objectives. Okay. And use the current job description to, flip it, deconstruct it to try to get in the viewpoint of this is what experience we require to do the job. The other thing on the director, there's nothing in the regulations that say they have to have a master's degree. Okay. Nothing. But internally, word on the street, if they don't have a master's degree, you might lose a point. Okay, I'm not saying it's for real, but it's been done to me for a variety of reasons. But I can't find the regulation. It's just something that could cost you a point. So, if at all possible, please, I stress to my clients to put master's degree required. Okay, people say, well, why don't we put preferred? I said, okay, but you're gonna lose a point here. I know I would take a point off. Just letting you know, I would tell readers to take a point off if they don't put master's degree required. Okay, for the director. Heck, at some colleges systems, um, you can't even be an advisor without a master's degree, possibly, right? So anyway, great question. Okay, okay, dude, okay, looks like we don't have funds to, okay. So, okay. What is, I don't remember I'm not sure what FSOCC means. If you could let me know. And they attended something but can't go back to it. So if you could let me know, I'm sorry, so many acronyms I can't remember. I'll come back to that, okay? So let me know what that stands for. Do outreach advisors have to have a BS or will we lose a point? Again, I strongly, yeah, okay, I'm glad you brought this up. Just like with my directors, I'm like, look, they gotta have to have a master's degree. I can't show you where it says they have to, but promise, I mean, take it from me. I've been there. I've lost points for the director not having a master's degree, or just saying it was preferred and not required. The same thing with these outreach advisors, y'all. The same thing. You better say they have at least a bachelor's degree. And like I said, heck, at some colleges, they won't even look at you if you don't have a master's degree, even to come in as an advisor. But I would tell you, I would say, I'm going to take a point off. You better be okay with that going in like that. And if you're going for new funding, game over. But this is for continuation funding, you've already got a grant, you've got prior experience, you're going to lose a point there. And if you're okay with that, fine. So I definitely would say they have to have a bachelor's degree, okay? Otherwise, you got to be prepared to lose a point there. Um, yes, I remember you mentioned I should get that. What do you think I need? Okay, thanks. Sarah, you mentioned something about student lingo because you have SSS. And student lingo can work for both talent search also and EOC, but we tend to use it for EOC. Now, a prior approval. So this is about a regulation. The federal definition of what becomes equipment versus supplies was one unit that was $5,000 or more. One unit, not a group of stuff, but one thing. As of October 2024, they raised it to 10,000. Okay, so depending on your quote, Sarah, depending on the quote, if it's below $10,000, federally speaking, you don't need prior approval. But your college probably wants to say something about it because they probably are still using the $5,000 per unit item. Or some of them use 1,000. So you need to check in. So at this point, federally speaking, if it's under 10,000, then you don't, but then you need to check with your college first because they're the ones that you have to go by. Whoever has the stricter rule wins. Okay, so find that out and work with student lingo too. They know the game, so they might give you a quote and work with you and say, "Look, I can do it now if we keep it under a certain amount. Cut me a deal, right?" but check with your college. Okay, this is the question. For personnel, can we write out that they will be paid 50% EOC and the other 50% out of a different grant? Well, yes, for certain personnel, that won't be a problem, like your advisors. But if it's the director, be prepared to lose a point because I'm assuming that means that 50% of their time and effort will be on the grant. They won't be a full-time director. Okay. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely put, in your budget, 50% this, 50% this. For the advisors, that's a good deal. And again, they shouldn't hold that accountable, except, you want to make sure you can justify that they have enough or reduced caseload if they're going to be part-time and not full-time in the grant. Oh, I'm sorry. You meant they're going to be full-time in the grant. But okay, I'm out of a different grant. So it depends what that different grant is. Are you saying that 100% of their time and effort will be for EOC? But 50% of their money's coming from a donation, or are they actually working for another program? If they're working for another program, then they're going to be part-time. So convince me that their caseload is doable on part-time basis. Okay, because their other 50%, they're going to be working for somebody else. They're not full-time. Okay, so keep me, you might want to update me on that question if I'm on the right track. How many years of experience do I suggest for the project director and advisors? Well, this is where you need to check also, Sharon, with your institution's HR. You don't want to make sure you request less than what they have for that position. Um, and if you do more, then you're kind of stuck with the increase. So number one, see how many years for that established position with HR that they're requiring, so you don't put yourself in a situation later on where you've asked for two more than what you needed, and less than what's required, internally. So check that out. Without knowing what's going on there, without knowing anything else, I usually, would say at least, um, you know, 5 years or more experience working with this type of talent search EOC eligible, with at least three of those as a manager of a similar program for director without knowing anything else. Okay, what your institution would require. With advisors, I would be, at least 2 years experience in this type of work, with 1 year in that specific title as an advisor, case manager, something like that. Okay. Without knowing, what they require at your institution. Okay. So check that out because that could be your guide. Let's see here. What about advisors and master's degrees? I think I already answered that. I think advisors at the minimum bachelor's, but if your institution requires them to have a master's, then you need to say what it is that you require people to have. It's required to have a master's degree if your institution forces that. Okay, if it requires that. Otherwise, a lot of times, it's a bachelor's degree with experience. Okay. Jessica, yes. Is the director supposed to be? Yes, the director must be 100% time and effort unless you've been received prior approval or you're going to be asking to be split. But when you ask to be split, what's going to happen is you could lose a point because the director's not 100%. So they may approve it, but with a point taken off. 2 points taken off if you haven't designated who's going to be in charge when the director's not there. Okay. Who is their lead advisor that will serve, as interim director because you can't be at two places at the same time. And so I think this is going to be something that could be a deal breaker. But if you are going in with existing funding and you can afford to lose a point, so be it. If it's the only way to make the budget work nowadays with a salary, I'm not trying to discourage you not to be split if that's where you have to be split. Now, definitely if you're split already, you stay split. Please do not go back and be 100%. I'm just letting you know. And maybe you've never lost a point before. Maybe you've been fortunate that you've never lost a point ever, and I hope that you don't. But this time around, I don't know. I don't know. So we need to write for 100, but well, again, uh, Jesse, whatever you are right now, leave it alone. You see what I'm saying? If it's already split or if it's 90% whatever, leave it like that. Because I don't want you to force it to be 100% because I don't know. I don't know if they're going to entertain changing the percentage of time and effort anymore like they used to. That was always my thing. Back in the day, I always put myself as 100% director on all these grants, knowing that I would be able to negotiate. And there was no problem. That those days are gone. Now I would be putting myself from the get-go, whatever I'm at right now, I'm putting myself in as right now because I'm afraid that if I change it and put 100%, they're going to deny it and then I'm going to be in trouble. So I'd rather lose the points, but I could afford it because each one of my grants had enough prior experience. Okay. So it was originally written for 100, but they must have changed it before and got it approved. You stay where you're at and just possibly take the hit, but make sure that you write that someone, when the director's not there, that someone is going to serve as the temporary lead advisor for, limited supervisory and management roles in your absence so that you can only lose 1 point. Do not change this. If anyone out there has been already received prior approval to be split in any combination, you stay that way and just prepare yourself to lose a point. We have an HB grant, which the objectives are financial applications, right? But they would be working for them. So even if you're working with the same students, you have to split your time and effort. So it's not like this grant is paying. I'm assuming, right? I mean, they're either the same students, but you have to show I mean, is it 100% time on the grant or they're also going to be split on this other one? So technically they're split, so they're part-time on each grant. Okay. If it's a full donation, that's a different story, but they're expected to produce records and to have files for those students, right? Which could be, some people say, well, they're the same, but you still have to do a separate file and keep them separate. The objectives are almost similar. House bill to get, okay, but you still, they're not supposed to be mixed. They have to be separate, even though possibly they could be the same students. Example, I had a Department of Justice mentoring grant for middle school students. Well, all of my Talent Search students, not all of them, about 60 of them were in that grant. And so I could get funding for having a full-time person to do the mentoring program. But those 60 students were Talent Search students, but they still had to have 60 files for, and records and documentation of services provided for those 60 students separately, okay, through that Department of Justice grant. Okay, so, even though it's the same, it still requires separate record keeping, even though everything's pretty much the same. Okay. All right, so we're just at 1 o'clock right now. Thank you all so much for your questions. Please don't hesitate to send us some questions ahead of time. I can try to get to them or save them until we meet. I don't think we have anything that's going to keep us from meeting next Monday. This recording will be ready and posted on our YouTube channel, which also has all the other recordings for the ones we've done. So thank you for joining us. I hope this was helpful. Please give me a thumbs up. Hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye, y'all.